This one setup makes me 5 figures every single month, and it's so simple and accurate you'll wonder how you ever traded without it. It's exactly how I can catch entire reversals with deadly precision and without overthinking it or really giving it a second thought. It's called the cloud flip. And when this shows up inside a proper supply and demand level with the right conditions, it's one of the cleanest ways to stack profit. And the best part is, you don't need to sit there for hours trying to feel where the market is going, or look for confirmation from 5 different indicators, or stress about every single tick in the market. It's just a dead simple setup that you can spot easily, and it tells you precisely where to enter and exit, and that's all you need. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact process I use to find and nail the cloud flip every single time. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is make sure everything is set up properly. The main tool we're going to use for this is the EMA cloud, and it's super simple to set up. Now, I won't go into detail about the specifics of the EMA cloud, but it's really the only tool I use. It does everything you could possibly need for an indicator all in one. I'll link a video here where I go more into detail about exactly how to use the cloud so you can watch later. But the cloud is central to this setup, so I'll show you how to apply it right if you haven't already. First, go into TradingView in the Indicators tab. Type in EMA Cloud in the search bar, and that'll give you a bunch of results. You're going to pick this one. Then once you get it on your chart, go into Settings and change the numbers to 20, 50, and 50. Then you should get something that looks like this. I like to change the color to gray to keep it cleaner visually. Now once you have that set up right, we can move on to the actual setup. The cloud flip itself only has 2 steps. Number 1 is that for the cloud flip to be a valid one, the price must be in a supply and demand zone. The cloud as an indicator is rather simple. It's just the 20 exponential moving average and the 50 exponential moving average with the area shaded in between. And visually, that gives us a very clear view of the trend and who's in control of it in just a few seconds. The EMAs are responsive to the price. They're basically a smoothed out version of price action to give us an easier read. So if the price is bullish, the cloud will be sloping up naturally. And if the price is bearish, then the cloud will be sloping down. For the cloud to go from bullish to bearish, or from bearish to bullish, it means the cloud needs to flip from sloping down to sloping up. And that's where the cloud flip happens. A successful cloud flip will mark a major reversal in the price and could be extremely profitable if executed correctly. But what do I mean by successful? Well, you see, cloud flips happen all the time. Especially when the market is flat or choppy, we can have multiple. But if you tried trading these flips, you'd burn yourself pretty quickly. Not all cloud flips are successful. In fact, most aren't. That's why we need to have a strong filter to clear them out. So our first requirement for this setup is that the price will be in a supply and demand zone. This will automatically filter out most of the bad cloud flips. Think of these zones like magnets for price. They're where the real money is sitting. Institutions, funds, and big players. There is a high level of volume and trading activity at these levels. That means when the price gets there again, they will react. And if the price isn't there yet, it'll be drawn there soon enough. And I'll link a video here right now explaining exactly how I draw and find these zones. A cloud flip at one of these zones is much more likely to be valid than a random cloud flip in the middle of nowhere. So our first requirement is simple. The cloud must be in a supply and demand zone, and if it isn't, then we wait until it is. So in this case, we see that the price recently entered a supply and demand zone, which means we can now consider a trade. And that's when we move on to step 2. Step 2 is the cloud flip itself. So let's take a look at the overall context here. The cloud was mildly bearish before, then flipped bullish. Now notice here that the price isn't at a supply and demand level. This would not be considered a valid cloud flip by our standards. And look at what ended up happening later. This so-called bullish cloud flip failed. We attempted to break above supply and immediately got rejected. But now the price has broken firmly into a supply and demand level, and the cloud that was bullish before has just flipped. The 20 exponential moving average has crossed under the 50 exponential moving average right here, which signals a potential bullish reversal. And this is the one we're going to take seriously. We broke into demand with momentum, and we're now looking for a breakout move to continue breaking down to the next demand level. Now, since the cloud already flipped at this candle, our entry trigger was activated. We can enter this trade immediately. We're going to enter short and place our stop right above the cloud and our target at the next demand level. Our stop being right above the cloud flip is the perfect spot because if the price breaks above the cloud, it tells us that the trade wasn't valid. Price would need to continuously reject the cloud and continue breaking lower for the cloud to continue sloping down and reach our target. If it doesn't do that, it means the price isn't interested in breaking out for now and wants to get back into the range, which would make our cloud flip invalid. So our stop loss is placed perfectly, and our target is naturally placed at the next level. From there, we just let it play out and make sure not to interfere, and that's it. We just let it run to stop or target and accept either outcome. We don't need to overthink every move or overtrade. We just need to execute the same setup properly over and over, and we'll get an edge. And that's the key. The zones only need to be marked once, and then we can use them forever. Once the zones are marked, all we need to do for the day is this. We look at our chart right before the open, then set alerts at the level above and below, and we do nothing until either of those levels hit. Once those levels hit, we'll get alerted and check our screen. From that point, we look at the cloud and see if it's in a position to be flipped and to catch a reversal. Then, once we see that the cloud is indeed ready to be flipped, we wait for the flip itself to occur. When that happens, all we need to do is execute. That's the entire process from start to finish. It takes maybe a couple of minutes of actual screen time and work. And the truth is, most traders don't need more setups. They need to make fewer decisions. And when I say most, I mean the vast majority of traders. We crave action, and a lot of times we confuse motion with progress. We think that if we're more active, we're automatically going to be more profitable. But this simply isn't the case. The key with the cloud flip setup is that it forces you to slow down until you're almost uncomfortable with being that inactive. Because it's not a setup that happens every day. You might not get one for a week if the market's slow. But here's the thing. If you're able to handle that without doing anything extra, you can handle any and every single market condition. The thing with traders and certain trading strategies is that they're seasonal or temporary. They can't adapt to new market conditions, or at the very least don't know how to avoid the conditions that aren't favorable to them. And that just leads to an endless state of being break-even. But the cloud flip setup forces you to avoid this, not just strategy-wise, but also psychology-wise. If you trade that cloud flip setup correctly, you'll realize that you don't need to be in the market every single day, and that some days are just best to avoid entirely. In fact, even some weeks are best to avoid entirely. And that's the main value of the cloud flip. It's not just that it's simple or easy to follow, it's that it teaches you how you're supposed to trade. Once you can follow a certain setup or system consistently, you've unlocked the key to serious long-term growth. It won't even matter if you trade at a different time or trade a different setup. You now have the blueprint to growing and scaling in your mind. Trading won't just be a small-time game or a hobby anymore. It'll become a serious tool you can use to build wealth. And this is also exactly what I teach traders inside my mentorship. You'll work with me directly, and we'll build a custom plan around your trading. We'll have one-on-one calls where we break down your trades, your mistakes, and fix your edge, as well as a private chat where you can communicate with me at any time. I'll also give you access to this exact level-to-level chart that you can use in real time. So if you're interested, click the link down below to apply. And if this video helped you, then be sure to leave a like and hit subscribe, because I drop videos exactly like this every week. I'll see you in the next one.